really appreciate you jumping on board here. This is the first time we've ever done this for Racetech. It can be quite hard to get feedback from people sometimes, and especially jumping on board with people, over video chat. It's just not something we've done, but we're really looking to do more of it. So I appreciate you being the first one.
Yeah. Okay. So I get to be a guinea pig.
No. Well, yeah, you could say it that way, I guess. So, I mean, if you don't mind, just we won't take too much of your time, but what's your background with racing? How did you get into racing?
Kind of like stereotypical answer. My dad raced. So I liked cars growing up. My dream car to this day is somehow a 57 Chevy Bel Air. I grew up doing karate, and then as I got older, I was more and more interested in cars. So I turned 16. I get my first little Rice mobile, I guess. I got a 98 240 SX. I had a S15 engine in it. A lot of alcohol has been consumed due to that engine, but it was not a good time. Yeah. But it definitely it built character. And then got a 92 Eagle Talon, and that was kind of, I guess, more so what I became known for, since it was on the Netflix show, and that was kind of when social media started becoming more of a thing. So a lot of people, like local people and street racers and grudge racers, not that I would ever street race ever, they all know me from my 240 days and from that car. But most people in general, like with class racing or just the internet, they just know me from having the DSM. And then I now race, ironically, in Honda Civic.
Yeah, but it's a pretty cool Honda Civic.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's a 96 Midori EK hatch. It's got a bullet, actually, so kind of your side-ish of the pond, K24 in it, and it's built at the machine shop that I work at, JBR. So it's kind of a weird thing how things happen,
So you work at a shop, you're building race cars and race motors and stuff like that?
So we just do engines. Yeah. Okay. So I work at an engine machine shop. And then my boyfriend, who owns the Civic, he's a tuner mostly. He also sells parts, but he tunes. And he's not so much a fan of doing the mechanical dirty work side of things. And I love doing that side of things. So it's just kind of like a match made in heaven, if you will. So awesome. I'm kind of the one that's in charge of the making sure the car's ready to go and safe and all that. And his job is to make sure that I don't lose. So,
so tell me how about, so first of all, actually, that's a really cool story. But had you heard of Racetech before, like previously, before actually getting a seat, or?
Yes. So I heard about it through Haley James, she is a bit of an icon herself for her double DQ at World Cup finals in 2018, I believe. And then she came back to win the next year. So she had a Fox body that had like the American flag wrap on it. A lot of people know that car. So she wrecked that car. I believe the throttle stuck open, if I recall correctly. So she wrecked that car, cracked her helmet on the cage because she didn't have a full containment seat. And then her dad was like, I need to make improvements and, things like that. And one of the things was safety. So he, by his own research or knowledge or however he came across it, he said that the Racetech was far and wide the best option. That's what they were going to get, yada, yada. So, fast forward, I always, I'm with her, helping them out on the car and things like that. So I just always had that in my mind after that happened. And anytime, even just other people building their cars, whatever, I need a seat. I was honestly recommending the seat and I had never used it. But I know that Dwayne is, very knowledgeable and knows what he's talking about. And I respect, his opinion and things like that. So I was like, hey, Haley runs this after she wrecked and this and that, and they recommend it. So that's what I recommend to everybody. And then kind of jump forward to October of last year, 2023, Rob told me that he wanted me to drive his car, but he said that I couldn't use the seat that was in it. Front wheel drive racing is very sketchy. All racing is obviously dangerous. and, sketchy to a point, but the front wheel drive stuff is like a whole thing, a whole different animal. So he, hypocritically, just had a solid carbon seat that just I was not a fan of, like just not good. So he told me that my Christmas present was going to be a seat and that I needed to pick one out that was more of a full containment seat. And I told him that I already knew which one I wanted, that I wanted the Racetech seat, the 4100 series. And he told me, okay, when you're with Haley, I had to help her out a race. He was like, sit in her seat, make sure it's the right size, yada, yada, and I'll get it. So that's what I did. I sat in her seat. I loved it. Was comfortable, fit me well, which is honestly tough as a female. Most things, like, it's hard for us to find stuff that actually like is nice and snug.
Yeah, I get it. Body shape's different, right?
Yeah. So obviously most racers are bigger or whatever. So that was one thing that I really liked. I love the little, I call it a booster seat. The basically the built-in booster seat sits me up. I like that. So yeah, that's pretty much how that happened. Is he told me that I was not allowed to race in the seat that he had because it was not safe, and that I needed a better seat. So I got the Racetech seat, and then I wrecked the car and was glad that I had the Racetech seat.
Yeah. So did you get a booster cushion, or are you just talking about the cushion?
Just the one that it comes with, the little Velcro.
Oh, right. Yeah. You can
I call it a booster seat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, the thing is what I've found is that it's hard to get the perfect seat, but what we've done is tried to get it as close as possible by like essentially ergonomically designing them so they're shaped more for what you would say is a body shape or different body. So that's why we've got the different sizes, which your standard, which probably fits you, and then you've got wide and then or a tall, and then you've got wide tall. So I mean, I think that's, in terms of innovation, that's about as close as you could get, right? Like I'm not going to rubbish other brands out there, but there are, there's not a lot of consideration that goes into body shape with a lot of other seats. So appreciate the feedback on that. It's really cool. And then, so did the seat go straight into the Civic?
Yes and no. Obviously, when you kind of like take a 6'2", 280-pound guy and swap him out with a 5'3", 120-pound person, a lot of modifications definitely had to be made. But yeah, for the most part, it did. We kind of tried to figure out keeping me in the hoop, still pushing me forward. But we used all of your guys' mounting hardware in the brackets. So yeah. When we did the bottom and then the back, we have the adjustable angle. I don't know.
Adjustable back bracket. Yeah.
Yep. So we have that on the back of it. So it's nice and in there. And honestly, I really like it. Partially because I can hide in there because people can't really see me as well. So sometimes I'm just like, I need a break, and where can I go? I just go sit in the car because nobody expects me to be in there. And it's great for napping. Honestly, it's so comfortable. And I made the joke when we were first, fitting it in the car and stuff like that. I'm sitting in it, and I made a joke, and I said, I don't know, I might sleep on the tree. Like, this seat's really comfortable.
It's funny. Yeah, we get that. We've had that feedback. In fact, someone sent us a photo the other day, which we posted it, of a guy with he's got two in his drag truck. And his boy had fallen asleep in the seat. So yeah, it's great. But I think that's one of the things, right? Like that's what we always try and get across to people, because I feel like a lot of the time it's price driven, whereas someone like yourself seems to have thought outside the box and has gone, okay, we need comfort and safety. And when you have comfort and safety, is kind of the message we push often, is that it's like, imagine if you had a helmet that was too small, right? Like it would be annoying you the whole time. And even though you're not in the car, like it's not circuit racing, you're not in the car all day, but you need to make sure that you're not nothing's bugging you while you're sitting there at the line ready to take off. So that's kind of how we think about the same about the seats as well. Like, you've got to be comfortable. If you're comfortable and you're safe, then your performance is going to be better. So that's kind of the way. Have you noticed anything like that, and from using other seats compared to ours, or you haven't really thought about that far?
Yeah, so I mean, as everybody loves to point out, imports break a lot. Front-wheel drive cars break a lot. So we do, honestly, you end up sitting in that seat for a long time, or you're somebody who can't sit still and you're in and out and in and out and in and out. But for me personally, once I'm in, I don't really care, and I'll sit there. So yes, from somebody who does get stuck in the lanes and get stuck, 2 cars away, and then there's an oil down, and then there's 1 car away, and there's an oil down.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Sometimes you're in that seat for a long time. And I do not have the issue of, oh, my butt fell asleep. Oh, my legs are going numb. Oh, my back's kind of hurting. I literally just sit there.
That's great.
And I've had people, jokingly say, like, how are you just sitting in there for an hour? And I'm like, because it's way more comfortable than where you're standing, I promise. So, that is definitely a thing. At least on our side of racing, unfortunately, we push these engines way too far and cause a lot of destruction. So that is one point. But yeah, so to circle back to your point on the cost, I don't know how to beat it into people's skulls. I try to beat it into them. And, they say, oh, well, so-and-so, without putting anybody out there, so-and-so makes that seat. And I'm like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
It's the same. Yeah, but it's not the same. Well, how come theirs only costs like $300 and it's the same thing? Well, it can't actually be the same thing. Listen to what you just said. One of them's $300, the other one's $1,500, however much it is. I can't really remember. And I'm just throwing out random numbers, but sorry, my dog.
No, that's cool. He wants to get in there. Yeah.
He's just a puppy. So and I try to tell people that, it's not one size fits all when it comes to, oh, well, it looks the same and this is a fraction of the cost, so it must be the same. No. Please stop. It can't be that way. If you have 2 turbos and one's an eBay, whatever turbo from a sweatshop in some unknown country, and then you have, say, a precision turbo, and it's going to cost a whole lot more money. It's the same thing. I always tried to beat that into people's skulls, but
man, really
some
appreciate
skulls are harder than others.
Yeah. I mean, and you're never going to please everyone, right? So, and we totally understand that, but we're just, we're just trying to keep, pushing the message out there, about that, that sort of thing. But like I say, I mean, I've been 2019, I was at PRI show, and, I'm not putting the guy down, but he was wearing, I don't know what you guys call them, are they like overalls or whatever, like the jean ones, like the hillbillies and stuff wear? He I think they're called dungarees or something here, or I don't know. But he asked me how much the seat was worth, and he happened to be looking at one of our more expensive seats, which the lightweight white carbon fiber ones are, they're quite up there. But I mean, it is what it is. And I told him the price, and he told me he could make one at his house in his backyard for $300. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm sure you can. But so, getting to your point is that you're never going to please everyone with that sort of stuff. But what we can do is try and provide the most value. And I think we're doing it. But is the scene over there, we're not huge in America. Our name's definitely out there, but and now it's starting to take a surge more on the drag side of stuff. But you're obviously doing drag, but on the import side. And I didn't know until maybe, I've been doing this for Racetech for 5 years. I didn't even know until this year that there was a massive side of the import drag scene. Is it blowing up, or?
It's kind of always been there. I think just, with now, I think it's more so, it's kind of like the news, people are like, oh, all these people are getting killed and all this stuff suddenly. And it's like, no, it's not new. It's always been there. It's just now is easier for you to find out. Yeah. It's more in your face and it's more easily accessible and things like that. So import racing is definitely huge over here. The East Coast of the country is really kind of like the driving force in the forefront. The West Coast is a little bit behind. But yes, like we have import races that just draw tons and tons and tons of crowd. Going back to my friend Haley, she's always grown up racing Mustangs. She's always grown up doing domestic racing. She just moved here. Her and her fiance moved here, and his brother does juniors. So they came to their first like import event because he was doing his junior dragsters, and they fell in love. They were like, oh my God, like you guys have so many people. There's not only so many racers, but just the crowd and the environment and the vibe and like the excitement and everything like that. So there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of excitement and things like that with the import side. And I'm glad that it's starting to get more recognition, because I definitely feel like, for the longest time, we were just like the weird bastard FedEx child that nobody really took notice to,
I think what's really cool, and like no one's a self-made man, and what the point I'm trying to make here is that the reason I came across it is because I think it's in North Carolina or maybe South Carolina. There's a massive meet, and it's essentially import versus like stateside cars. I can't remember the name of it. I'll find it in
Maryland.
Is it Maryland?
That's World Cup Finals, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And
yes.
That's how I came across it. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize how big it was, because in New Zealand and Australia and the side of the world, and actually in the US, sorry, not the US, the UK a bit as well, is that the Japanese cars are often used mostly for circuit racing. There is some drag racing, but it's not like you guys are doing. This is, I mean, maybe in Australia a little bit more, but I think it's great. And then to circle back to my comment is that if you guys mix, that sort of rivalry is like, that's awesome. Especially if you guys start beating them really badly. In terms of social media and that sort of things, like it's great. It's a great way to get the scene out there, which I think is awesome. What question I forgot to ask before as well, have you ever what benefits do you notice with the back mount on the seat?
So I've always mounted, I've always had that, even with my cheap how do you guys pronounce it? Aluminium seat?
Oh, aluminium.
Yeah. So I've always kind of been a big proponent for safety and trying to do things the right way and stuff like that. So I've never personally had to experience the flex, right, but I've seen it. I've seen it plenty in in-car videos, or even just, being told to hop in the car and like steer it or like drive it down the pit lane or whatever for any reason. I've experienced that even just like being in the car, you know what I mean? But actually racing, I've never experienced it because I've always had the back mount. But yeah, I mean, it's added safety. Like I said, I hit a wall, and I don't know if not having the back mount would have done me any worse, but I know that having it definitely helped. So, to me, it's you should just do it, because it can hurt to not do it, but it can't hurt to do it.
So with your crash, if you don't mind me asking, or just ask, I've seen the video. It's pretty, like, you at first you look like you were just going hard. I was like, oh, this is great, and then you sort of see it veer off. Like, I don't need to understand how it happened, but did you? I think another video I've seen, actually, you could see part of it hit the wall or something at one point. Was that right?
Yeah.
Did you actually hit the wall?
Yeah, so the like I said, the front wheel drive stuff is pretty sketchy. Just driving down the track, definitely not the sketchiest car I've ever driven, but it's the stopping. So with these cars, you have all the weight up front. They already don't weigh much. Our class weight is 2,400 pounds. And you put as much weight as you possibly can over the front and no weight at all in the rear. And if you kind of look at history back before they understood the science of things, when these cars started going really fast and they didn't have the chutes mounted right, a lot of times you'd see a chute come up and just lift the rear, and some really gnarly wrecks and things like that. So it's definitely a very sketchy platform to race. And so, like you said, I made the pass. and everything in my head was going great. You know, I launched the car. It was my last chance to qualify. I hit second, and I remember my I have a Haltech Dash in the car, and I remember the mount on it broke and fell forward. And I remember thinking, well, it's a good thing I don't really look at the shift light, just, you know, kind of pay attention to how it feels, you know, whatever, hit your shift points. And then once I grabbed fourth and I knew for sure, I was like, cool, I'm going to qualify, just stay together through the finish line. And it did. And I was like, awesome. It worked out. Because it was kind of an all-nighter type thing with a broken transmission and swapping a transmission and having to do a bunch of work. So it was very like fulfilling pass. And then I don't know, 2 seconds later, I'm on decel, and I guess just all the weight that shifted to the front, it dug the weight plate in. The weight plate itself is 100 and something pounds, and then we have hundreds and hundreds of pounds, like almost 1,000 over each front tire, to kind of put it. I don't know the translation, but it's about 1,000 pounds over each just front tire. And then, like I said, our class weight's 2,400 pounds, so that doesn't leave a whole lot of weight for the rest of the car.
Yeah.
So just all that weight just shifted, and it dug the weight plate into the ground and just kind of took me for a ride. I, you know, tried to steer, tried to correct. A lot of people, oh, you didn't pull the chute. Well, I don't know at what point I'm supposed to pull a freaking chute when the steering wheel's doing this. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think people grasp like how violent and how fast that all is when it's a front wheel drive car. It's not a rear wheel drive car where I still have steering. You know what I mean? And just the rear wheels that are going crazy. Yeah. So there's a lot happening all at once. Admittedly, also, you know, I was inexperienced, not with racing, but with front wheel drive stuff. So could it have been saved if it was somebody more experienced? Possibly. But I did my best ultimately. And then, so I lost the battle. So I was in the right lane, kind of went back and forth a little bit, trying to save it. And then it hit the wall like straight on and bounced in the air and then came back down and kind of did a little loop-de-loop there. But yeah, that's how that happened.
And did you walk away pretty much unscathed?
Yeah, the steering wheel, I had a bruise on my thigh from the steering wheel. And then, like I said, I'm into safety, so I crank my belts down. So I had some bruising here and like some bruising on my ribs just from like this. But head-wise, if I did hit my head, I didn't feel it. You know, there's a lot of cushioning there between the helmet and the seat and everything else. My arms were good, like everything, you know, on my body was good except for where the steering wheel hit, and then, like I said, obviously where my belts kind of like cranked down on me. Yeah. But other than that, I was fine. You know, I didn't have any neck pain, none of that.
How fast do you reckon you were? Sorry, I'll rephrase that. How fast do you think you were going when you hit the wall?
It's hard to say because I know I crossed the traps. I'm sorry, he's 5 months old.
That's cool.
I know I crossed the traps at 186 mile an hour. And like I said, there was some back and forth there. So I don't know. I would say I had it slowed down to like maybe about 100
mile an hour.
Yeah.
Far out. I mean, that's still, you know, I've seen cars hit the wall a lot less than that, and they, you know, they come off pretty bad. So.
It twisted the chassis some. I took it. My body people took it over and put it on the frame machine. It was on the frame machine for a day and getting straightened back out and all that good stuff. So the car itself didn't make it out unscathed, but I did. So.
Man, what a story. That's pretty crazy to hear, especially kind of what you were saying before about Haley James. There's a guy I don't know if you've ever heard of him, John Dock. He does. Yes. He has like a YouTube.
That's who we bought the seat through, actually.
Oh, is it? All right, yeah. Well, I was just talking to him like 20 minutes ago, but he was. So when we first started working with those guys, they were kind of the same. They'd be promoting our seats, but didn't have one in one of their cars. And then the guy Matt he was working with crashed. I don't know if you must have seen it. He takes her from the line, and then it just kicks, and the side just goes straight into the wall. And they hadn't put one of our seats in yet, and he was in a like a flat back, like I don't know, 15-inch Kirky or whatever they're called. Yeah. And they have two like bolts with just tiny washers that screw through the back into whatever. I'm not sure. But he ended up going to hospital, and it was just it wasn't like it's a full cage and everything. I didn't. It doesn't to me. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad wrecks. It didn't look like it was. Most of the damage was done when it veered off further down and hit, further down the track. But he pulled the seats out, and one of them is completely bent forward and over on an angle. And the ISP padding, what we notice is that one side of the cage is kind of straight, and the other side of the cage comes on an angle like this. I'm not sure why that is, but so there's ISP padding on one side that's on an angle. So when his head hit, it pushes like that, and then it comes back and bangs off this side. And people a lot of people say to us, like, why do I need the head restraint? I don't need a head restraint, stuff like this. And that's exactly why, because the head restraint's perfectly flat like this, and it stops your head from basically flapping around. So it's really interesting to hear that, actually. We don't get a lot of feedback from people all the time. Some guys don't want to talk about it. Some people do, so it's great. Appreciate that. So have you got any your sponsors? Who are your sponsors that you're working with at the moment?
Haltech. You could do Precision. Trying to think. I'm actually usually really good at this. Bellic, Ignite, Fuel. Bellic Wheels, Ignite, Fuel. The shop I work at, JBR. And
JBR.
KDN. And I probably forgot something, but yeah.
And why should everyone come down to your shop? What are you guys going to do there that you do better than everyone else?
Build engines that win World Cup finals and beat V8 Coyotes with a 4-cylinder K series.